大家好，我是九力周丽，你的英文 bestie。今天你要来问专业的英文老师们那些年你一直想问外国老师们的问题啦。九力上次有在 IG 上搜集大家可能对英文有的一些问题，或者是一直想要问外师但是不敢问的问题，所以今天就要来帮大家解决这个心头之痒，帮你说。那这些问题分别为大家一定都有的背单词的技巧，怎么练习发音 ，How to improve our speaking skills，How do you feel about foreigners having an accent？ 想知道好笑糗事，糗到会把自己埋起来的那种。想学18禁。那废话不多说，我们马上进入跟老师的精彩内容。
Hello.
Hi. Well, nice to meet you, Shannon, right?
Shannon, yeah.
Hello. Hey, nice to meet you. I'm sorry,
well-
your name is Aliyah?
Aaliyah.
Aliyah, that's beautiful, Aliyah.
And we have a visitor.
Oh, hello! Hi, baby.
Hello.
So beautiful. Hi.
Bom dia.
I just have 5 questions from my fans.
Mhm.
Do you have any effective techniques for memorizing vocabulary?
The good old-fashioned flashcards are really good. You can even go as far as to labeling things in your house. So you can label the refrigerator and write the English word refrigerator and put the sticky note there so that every time you use them and you pick that thing up, you're seeing the word and you can say the word out loud in English. And then before you know it, you know all of these vocabulary words.
I would say that having mnemonic devices has always been my go-to because I myself have learned other languages. You associate the word with something that you already know. This is a very silly example, but in Spanish, the word for pool, swimming pool, is piscina. And so my dad is a funny guy. He said, to remember that word, just think about how all the little kids piss in the pool. And I never forgot the word.
Such a great example. I love it. So the second question is, what's the best way to practice pronunciation?
So the first thing is understanding that pronunciation is actually the result of a physical muscle memory in your mouth and in your throat. I've come across a lot of students who really struggle with the American accent R.
Right.
They want to use their tongue and they might say something like light instead of right because going r is very difficult. So the first step is to practice the sound. And if you have a good tutor, like me, they'll tell you what your tongue is going to do. And it's kind of a strange conversation, but it's the only way to master the sound.
The best way to practice pronunciation is in front of a mirror and you slow it down like this. And you really work the mouth muscles because that is going to be the difference. Every muscle in our mouth is being activated when we work, and that's something people don't do, especially all my students here on Cambly. They don't understand mouth yoga and how important it is. And just slowing down. Eventually, you will sound like me after practicing like this in front of the mirror, very slowly and laughing at yourself.
It's kind of like the same question as number 2. How can we improve our speaking skills? And how do you feel about foreigners having an accent?
I think accents are beautiful. I'm married to one. I think the way she speaks English is awesome. It gives it a little flavor. It's not, people can put you in a box. You're from the UK, you're from Australia, you're from the US. My wife is not. She's Brazilian and her English is very Brazilian-esque. So to improve your speaking, you just gotta speak, you just gotta talk. Don't think. A lot of people think of how they should sound or what they should say or how they should do this or react. No, just speak.
In my experience on Cambly, I've talked to a lot of people who are really nervous to use their English because they're nervous about having that perfect accent. And for me, and pretty much everyone I know, there's no one out there that would ever be mad at you or say anything negative to you. So I just try to tell my students to not worry about that. I know it's difficult, and I'm nervous when I speak Spanish. Like I don't even listen to my own advice. I'm so nervous, I understand that. But I think as much as you can, just let that go and just be as confident as you can because people are really going to, if anything, they're going to praise you.
So one of my fans, they would like to know what's the most embarrassing yet funniest moment of your life?
Oh, this is a really tough question. I was a cheerleader in high school and I was a flyer. So I was the girl they threw up in the air to do all the tricks. And all the basketball team was practicing on the basketball court on both sides of the court, and my cheerleading friends and I decided we were going to show off for the basketball players. So we went in the middle of the court and we did this stunt routine, but they dropped me on my head, and I just fell on the floor and I hit my head. And I was trying to be all cool, but it ended up being really, really, really bad.
I mean, I feel bad for laughing, but
you can laugh. It's kind of ridiculous.
Well, when I met my wife in China, mind you, American in China, Brazilian in China, Brazil to me is Rio and bikinis and samba dancing, and everyone is my color, my complexion. I never thought in my mind that I would meet a white Brazilian with red hair at that. Now I'm married to one. Let me see if I can show you a photo of her.
Oh my gosh, she's so beautiful.
Thank you. So that was probably the most embarrassing moment in life when she told me she's Brazilian. I was like, no, you're not. Stop. Like, who am I to tell someone to stop telling me who they are? Like, you're not Brazilian. And then I found out she's very much Brazilian. She's from one of the most cultured parts of the country. I would say that would be the most embarrassing moment of my life.
Okay, last but not least, can you teach us some dirty stuff? Okay, that came out wrong. I mean,
Yes.
can you teach us some dirty words or sayings? Because we love that.
WTF? Like, what the? Everything.
Yep.
You can use it in every aspect. What the? Beautiful girl. What the? Oh my God, my phone broke. What the? Oh my God, I just met she's from the cornfields in the Midwest. Oh my God, what the personality? So that's my favorite.
I don't swear and I don't like to use any dirty language, so I think I'm gonna have to pass. I'm sorry, I know that's so boring.
It's okay. Is there anything that you would like to say, when you're mad? What's the go-to phrase that you use? Not dirty, though.
Oh, this is what it was. This is actually funny. Excuse me is a very funny phrase because it can be very polite, like, excuse me. But if you go, excuse me, that's very different. So it's good for people learning English to know that you have to say it the right way, depending on what you want to mean.
That's so clean, but so great.
Clean, but with some serious punch in it, you know what I mean? Excuse me?
九力这次真的非常高兴能够再次跟 Cambly 一起合作，老师们真的都超棒的啦，给的 advice 也超级 helpful，有没有？ I love when Terrio said mouth yoga. I thought that was so brilliant. He's so cool and hot， 超像 NBA player。其实我就是这样点进去的，对，我就是色鬼。如果你还没有看过九力之前跟 Cambly 合作真影片的老师的话，赶紧去看，实在是非常的精彩。如果在看的你想要进步自己的英文，但又因为疫情不敢出门 ，Cambly 绝对是你的最佳首选。Cambly 提供多国家的优质英文老师跟你1对1教学，各个老师的背景也都超厉害，像是 professor、pilot、musician， 真是所谓的 slashing 呢。Cambly 上课的模式也非常的简单，轻松就上手。有没有很想上 ？That sounded really weird。九力这次也帮大家谋到福利哦！如果这是你的第一次，只要输入九力999，因为我很持久，我是说影片讲话讲很久，就可以享有跟外师15分钟免费课程哦。那如果这是你的第二次，也就是之前有使用过 Cambly 的话，一样输入九力999，月度套餐就有85折优惠哦。这个优惠可是只有在九力这边才有哦。为什么听起来好像新闻网？这是独家新闻，好吧？优惠直到下个礼拜哦，千万不要浪费掉九力的心意，因为九力就来，有没有？超会广告。记得想要进步，就是要 step out of your comfort zone， 去吧，神奇宝贝。Thank you so much for watching. I love you all. 好，拜拜，卖美耶，继续做我的 bestie 哦，拜。我的是 ，My face is twerking.